Everyone online says you need to scale with a course. And I say, sell the damn service. I'm Emily Williams, award-winning consultant and productized offer expert since 2014. And I'm here to help you work less, make more, and stop custom building your burnout. Each week, we talk strategy, structure, and the real stories behind sustainable service businesses. You know, from service providers who like doing service work, who want to stay in service work, but also just make more money. If you're ready for all that yapping, then let's dive in. As a service provider, have you ever been in the position where you're wanting to increase your revenue? You've gotten to a point where it feels pretty good, right? Like clients are happy, the work is great, and you've maybe looked at the math and you're like, cool, but I want to make more money. I want to grow this into something a little bit more sustainable, more scalable, and something where you can maybe take some more profit from and actually have it impact your lives in new ways. But you're looking at your current situation and you've got incredible clients and the work is working, but you know that if you take on one more client, you're not going to be able to hold the standard of service that you've probably become known for at this point. You're at capacity, right? You cannot take on any more work. But therefore, that immediately means that your revenue cannot increase unless, of course, you were to offer other things, right? But you don't have the time to even think about what those things could be and designing them and marketing them and deciding what to kind of put out there, right? And you've heard me time and time again talk about how a lot of people are going to be shoving strategies down your throat about what to do at this pivotal moment in your business. And the marketing that is the loudest is, of course, the one-to-many marketing, right? Create templates, create something DIY, create something lower budget so you can expand your reach and your impact and work with more people. And while that is a strategy that's in alignment for how some people want to run their business, and I love that for them, for a lot of one-to-one done for you service providers, that type of energy that's required to run that kind of business isn't something we want to sign up for. Maybe it's something that we've explored, me, in the past, and maybe it's even something that's shown signs of working, right? Heck, I created a 7-figure business by going that route. As soon as I hit what I call ceiling season, I didn't want to work with any more done for you one-on-one clients. In fact, I was in a place where I very much resented them. And I've talked with a lot of service providers who have felt the same. The email with yet another revision or another meeting request or an email late at night or over the weekend about some deliverable or asset or change of scope and creep of those boundaries. It starts to stack up and we start to think that one-on-one service work is the problem. And we start to think that, man, if this is how messy or chaotic or heavy this feels with this many people, and I'm not even reaching my revenue goals, then why would I want more of it? Why would I want to work with more people that would just make the problems that I'm already having bigger and harder and more chaotic? So, as I'm sure you have heard over the episodes, but I want to keep, bringing up different opportunities for you. We're going to talk about those opportunities today. And I want to share them with you, not just because I would love to partner with you and work with you in installing these systems and scalable strategies, but because I just simply want you to know that there are other options out there, especially when things are feeling chaotic and heavy in the world. We tend to accidentally mirror that in our personal and business life, right? Because we're feeling this type of energy in our everyday space, then why wouldn't we also feel that in our business? And at some point, it becomes really comforting. And it becomes comforting to chase that chaos and the stress and the circumstances that we design ourselves that create burnout and overwhelm and all of the buzzwords that are really common in this space. And we start to listen to other people's feedback about how service work isn't scalable, how done for you work isn't sustainable. And if you're still in the weeds with your clients, or if you're still doing this thing in your business, then you're not a legitimate business owner, or that you must not care about scaling and you must not want more, right? And hopefully, to no one's surprise, I call major bullshit on that mentality and that way of coaching and talking to other business owners. There are a lot of different avenues and routes for you to get to the end result that you're actually after. And a lot of the conversations that I have with people who are interested in sold out services, the container where I help you design and install these systems in your business, is really getting to the root of what is it that you actually want? Not how do you think you need to get there? What do you think you need to do in order to achieve the result? I don't want to talk about that. I want you to really dig into what do you actually want? What is the end result? Because there are multiple pathways for you to get to an end result. But the majority of the time I'm talking with service providers and they're coming to me and they're saying, okay, I'm at capacity. And so I'm going to start this template shop, or I'm going to start this membership, and I'm going to start this cohort, or whatever it might be, right? And I say, okay, great. What's the end result here? For what? What are you actually hoping this thing achieves for you? And they haven't really thought about it. Maybe they gut response, they say, well, I want to make more money. Okay, have you done the math then on the actual opportunity for this price point or this container and this? Have you done the market research, basically? That's required in order for you to understand how this new container is going to actually help you reach that goal that you may or may not have identified. And aside from just revenue goals, right? Typically, this conversation starts with service providers because they're making a certain amount of money and they want to make more. And they have an idea of that monthly, new threshold that they want to reach. I'm not talking about the threshold that you want to reach in 3 years or 5 years or even at the end of the year. I'm talking about what would be nice for you to start to see an increase in the next 90 days, 60 days, right? What is the new threshold that you would like to feel good about achieving this year? Oftentimes when I ask this question of service providers, maybe they're currently making consistently 4K per month or 8K per month or 12K per month. It varies. But I ask them, okay, that's what you're making right now. What's your monthly goal revenue? And the 4K a month person says 15K. And the 8K a month person says 25K. And the 15K person says 50K, right? And I understand that that might be your I don't want to say your end goal, but like your goal in your big, dreamy, lofty business. Totally. I love that. Well, we have to if you're at 4, we've got to get to 6 and 8 and 10 first. And if you're at 10, we've got to get to 13 and 15 and 20 first, right? And I look at business as, bricks that we stack on each other to help us get to that goal, whatever it is. And so part of this conversation is, yes, I want you to say, okay, I have a revenue gap. And what is that revenue gap? But really checking in to make sure that that is realistic for your very next achievement. I'm not saying don't dream big. I'm not saying don't want more. These are two separate conversations. I think that there is a message online right now that is getting really convoluted, that's making you feel bad for quote unquote not wanting more when you're at 6, 8, 10K per month. And sure, maybe one day you'd love to have a 50K month, but we have to build the foundation in order for you to even get there. And you have to decide what kind of business do you want to run in order to get to that goal. There is not only one kind. It does not mean just because you want a 50K month that you have to run a digital marketing agency, digital products and templates and a shop. It does not mean that you have to have a massive agency with a bunch of sellers on your team and client fulfillment and client success people and account managers. There are happy mediums, right? There is a world where you can take a little bit of strategy from this business model or method and that business model and create something that feels more in alignment for you, right? But you aren't going to be able to understand what you need to toss out and what you need to keep if you don't know where you want to go next. Not eventually, but next. And oftentimes when we are hitting ceiling season, right? I've brought this up multiple times where you can't increase your revenue because your capacity is maxed. But maybe you don't have the cash runway to outsource or hire, train someone else in order to help you with client fulfillment, which would be a lever for you to increase capacity, right? If you are at capacity and you can no longer take on a client, well, then hire someone and they can then do some of the client work and you can maybe increase your capacity by 1 to 3 clients depending on what services you provide. But in order to do that, you have to have cash. You have to be able to pay that person typically in advance in order to do the work. And if you don't have, and I say this with air quotes because the service world is so different, if you don't have enough leads and very warm prospects ready to join to maybe not be cash positive for a month or 2 or 3, then that's not realistic for you. And that is a situation that a lot of businesses our size are in, right? And that feels so unattainable because how are you supposed to save more money in your business if you can't take on more clients and the amount of revenue that you're making right now is kind of like your minimum that you want to be making and you don't see any way out in that scenario. And so you go so far away from where you're currently headed and the department that you're currently in, right? You leave the store completely. And I more than anything, the more you stay in that store and just refine and try different levers and try to see the same problem, again in air quotes, from a different angle, the closer you will be to actually getting to your end result. And so, what are the other options, right? One of my favorite things to do, truly, because it brings in such an influx of cash for service providers. And it is such a confidence booster when you are trying to transition from you doing everything and not being able to bring on a team and not being able to increase capacity to creating that cash runway that helps so much. And it's for my folks who have done for you clients. They've been in business for a while and they have clients that they've maybe worked with for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, right? And these folks are in a package, in a container that is potentially on retainer, right? These people are still paying you to work with you. I see this in a lot for, PR agencies, marketing agencies, people that provide kind of like a suite of services, bookkeepers, tax professionals, right? People who don't really want to fire you and quit you, but they've been around for years and their current scope and their current contract and their current package amount maybe is in alignment with what you're offering right now. And there tends to be this kind of teeter-tottering of, okay, I'm at capacity, but maybe a lot of clients on your roster aren't even paying you what your current rate is. And if you were to get a new client, they would come in at 3, 4, 5, 10 times the amount that someone who you've been working with for 3 years is paying. But the service, ethical side, human side of you doesn't want to get rid of that person. You love working with them, or their package is super easy and their assets are great and they're happy and they'd happily keep paying you forever. So why would we quit them, right? So again, I present to you the idea that there could be a little bit of both strategies that we pull and create the solution that works for you. So my favorite thing to do here is to go back and audit every single client that's currently paying you. What package are they on? What scope was in their original contract and what was the price point? What results are you currently getting them right now? And is the scope that they've agreed upon needed in order to keep getting that result? Or have you learned a thing or 12? Have you realized, oh, we actually don't need to do this anymore, but we can sub it out for that? Or this worked 3 years ago, but it doesn't make sense now. Or, oh, I used to offer that manually, but now there's this kind of automated way we can do it that could save some time, right? And so we do this audit of your current scope, your current clients, and the current price point. And we literally look at every single client in a unique case by case basis. And I walk you through how to audit this inside Sold Out Services, the questions to ask yourself, the Airtable sheet to input the data, and how to actually analyze it. And we start to see, all right, this person is on this kind of container at this price point. I don't think that they're going to go up to the 10x price. That's fair. I'm not asking you to. I'm never going to be the service provider that's like, if they're paying you 2020 rates, then fire them. This is your business. These are your clients. You get to decide how to handle them. I'm also not the service provider that believes that if someone's in that container and in container A, if 3 people are in the same container, let me try to be clear here. If 3 people are in the same container, I'm not the service provider that is going to make you charge all 3 people the same rate. Now, what I want you to do is charge the same rate going forward, right? And have a minimum. But for legacy clients, we're only talking about legacy clients. It is absolutely up to your discretion of how you know this client is going to react, what you think they can handle, and what the scope is providing, right? I will do a little bit of pushback with you. And if you're saying, oh, I can't raise this price at all, then we really need to drastically eliminate scope and we need to do a time audit. And we really need to make sure that what they're getting then is super automated, like doesn't take any of your actual time unless we bump them up into a higher package, right? So we audit each one, we identify what scope is needed and what's not. And then based on, okay, these are the new packages. This is the new scope and the new price point for each of these people. Now, how do we present that to them? And how do we let them know that these changes are going to be happening? Well, the first thing we need to do is really, really dig into their results. What have you already gotten them? Over the years, what has it been like working with you? What are the tangible, measurable results? Yes, measurable. I need you to dig into the data and brag about yourself. You don't have to post this online if you want to, but you do need to share this with a client. It is your responsibility to identify the trackable, measurable, quantifiable results that you are getting your clients and gather that information and present it in a way that's going to remind them why they need to stick around, right? Especially in the industries that I'm talking about, bookkeepers, tax professionals, how much money are you saving them by identifying errors? How much time are you saving them? Marketing professionals, how many new leads are you getting them? How are their ads performing? How is it converting? Like the opportunity, right? PR folks, same thing. How much visibility are you getting them? What deals are you landing for them, right? What are you actually doing and how is it impacting their own bottom line? And so we're going to gather all of those results. And then depending on the client's vibe and personality and how you've been already interacting and communicating with them, you're going to create a custom conversation. Now, some of these are just simple phone calls, simple emails. Some are a little bit more in depth. Maybe if we're really drastically changing a container or changing a price, but we know they can afford it, then maybe we'll create a mini presentation that talks about here's where you were when you started. Here's what we did in the last 3 years. Here's where you are now. Here's what the package is changing to and why. And here's why that matters and why it's a benefit to you, right? We're not asking, we're informing because we are the expert, right? We know what is needed and what isn't in order to get them the result. If you don't know the result that you're actually providing your clients, we need to have a separate conversation about your authority anchor and really dig into that, okay? So if the client needs a more custom approach to this transition of it all, then maybe we build a slide deck or a PDF, right? And I can walk you through what you need to be including inside of that. And maybe you need to hop on Zoom with them and really kind of walk through the presentation of it and why it matters. But I promise you, when these conversations are had, more people than you think will stick around. More people than you think will happily pay the increased amount that you're asking. More people than you think won't care that you're eliminating items out of scope, especially if you frame it as a benefit to them, right? And what you'll realize is that the people who it isn't a good fit for anymore will naturally fall off. But the difference in what you will make with the clients who are upgrading and the capacity that you just opened up for a newer, higher paying client will be exponentially worth it. Absolutely worth it. And this process takes a couple of weeks. We need to go through the auditing, we need to create the communication plan, right? And then you need to do it and decide what's the time frame of when this is going to roll out and how is it going to transition and happen and yada yada. But within 4 to 6 to 8 weeks, you're going to start to have updated contracts signed with new scope and new price points. And what that means when you get that locked in is that you have contracted revenue. Maybe, yes, it doesn't all come in and you increase everyone's rates and maybe you get paid that new rate for that very next month, but you're going to see an impact for sure. But what I want you to do is look at the math and say, okay, if I hadn't made any changes and their contract ends in 6 months or 12 months or whatever, how much would I have brought in? And now with these changes, including anyone who's left, what's the difference? And that is the number I want you to really look at and use as your motivating factor. Because every business goes through this. Every business goes through transitions and refinement of packages and scope and pricing and results and outcome and promises and ideal clients, right? Every single business. It's not just you. And it is your responsibility to do this audit and to facilitate this transition and the communication game plan. I would love to help you figure this process out, right? And that's the work we do inside Sold Out Services. But it is your job. It is your job as a service provider in order to provide the best service, the best results, the best communication, experience, etc. This is part of it. Your folks who have been around for 3 or 5 years and are on a very old package at a really low rate with really dumb scope, let's be honest, are they getting the results that you could actually get them if they were on a refined package? Are you giving them the time and attention that they deserve because they're not paying you the appropriate rate? Are you thinking about them and strategizing with them and partnering with them to the level that you would be if they were paying you a current equitable rate? These are conversations that you need to be having and questions you need to be asking yourself, and then communicating that. And what that does is it's truly my favorite lever to pull in order to get cash in the door and contracted revenue. This allows you to not only have the cash today to maybe bring on a part-time person who can help you with client assets or client communication or admin behind the scenes, but it gives you the runway to say, okay, not only can I bring them on now, but I can afford them for a year because of all of these new updated contracts. And it's that dual leverage opportunity that is truly one of my favorites in order to increase your capacity, your revenue, and get you closer to that next revenue milestone. Because then if you do the math and say, okay, here's my new contracted revenue. So what does that automatically bump up your monthly revenue? Okay. You're definitely getting closer and closer to that target. But what it also does is typically increase your capacity for 1 to 3 new clients because some duds have left. Some scope has been refined. You're probably not over delivering or having as many meetings or whatever used to happen because you got really clear on what was needed. So now you can bring on new clients at your fresh rates. What does that do to your monthly revenue? And if you play around with the opportunity there, you're going to see some really nice motivation. You're going to see an opportunity to get closer and closer to that new monthly revenue goal. And it feels more attainable this way because it is a process and is a stair step. Instead of creating a new offer and creating a launch and creating a promotion and growing a new audience and building awareness and getting visibility and pushing it all out there and hoping that the launch of it all works, why don't we start here? I'm not saying we can't do something like that also. Obviously, I love those things, right? But it's all where you start. If you add more work to your plate when you're already at or over capacity, what do you think that's going to do for you? It's definitely not going to be sustainable. You might be able to push through it the first time because it's fun, it's new, it's exciting, it's sexy, but it's not sustainable over and over and over again. And different strategies like that, like even sold out services, right, requires me to be more present online and create more content and build awareness and partner with other business owners who I can get in front of, right? That's exciting to me. I like doing those things. That's why I chose this hybrid business model. But I didn't start implementing that until my consultancy side, the done for you side, was so buttoned up and everyone was on a great, an equitable priced container that was so productized and so streamlined. So they weren't taking a ton of my time and attention like they did year 1 and 2 when I was recalibrating, right? And then now going into year 3, not only have I been able to get to experiment by creating sold out services and content, but I'm now in a position, because both of those things are funding my business, that I can bring on support and I can bring on people who can actually do client delivery and organizing things on the back end and helping me share content, right? And so it's this amplifier. It's going from 0 to 60 feels hard and slow and murky and expensive. But going from 0 to 10, you could go from 10 to 50 a lot faster, right? Because you're building on these things that have a domino effect that help you get to that next stage, that next goal faster and easier. And that's what productization does. That's what streamlining your current service work does. Whether you decide to just rely on systems and automations or you bring on actual human support, you get to pick. But doing this first will allow you to get to experiment if that's something you want to do. So, if you want to learn more about productization and the authority anchor, like I mentioned today, I'm hosting a free webinar on March 12th, 2026 at noon Central. You can sign up for free at soldoutservices.com/webinar, save your free seat, and get your booty inside. And we'll dig into the phases and the pillars of productization and what does an authority anchor mean and how does it unlock truly the key and the blueprint to what productization actually looks like for you once you have your authority anchor designed. So soldoutservices.com/webinar, save your free seat, and I will see you there. Hey, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Sell the Damn Service. I'm really honored that you spent however many minutes you just did with me. Now, if you could go do me a very quick favor and be sure to like, subscribe, leave a rating and a review for this podcast over on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or, pick your favorite platform. I'm not going to be that choosy. It truly means the world to me. It's how little tiny shows that are like mine, that are self-funded and, being edited in between dinner time and school pickup, it helps us get seen. It's free for you to do and takes just a couple of minutes. And I would love you forever if I could send you an edible arrangement as a big thank you. I would. So instead, consider this giant thank you directed just at you for going to do that. And share this episode or this podcast with a friend who needs to hear it. I love ranting and raving about service-based business strategies. And, I think more people should listen to this show, honestly. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I really, really, really am grateful that you're here, and we will chat very soon.